Hey, everybody. I think we'll get going now. Um, this is the first conference of the American Baseball Biomechanics Society, or it's really the first conference I've ever hosted wearing a sports jacket and shorts, but that's how the times we live in. These are our sponsors up here, as I said already, and other people will be joining us, but we're going to get started because we have a full agenda. Bryson's going to fill us into some more details, but I'm going to start here with the first presentation. Baseball Biomechanics, Past, Present, and Future. I'm going to give you a little background of where we are at and where we plan on be going. I am an advisor for Major League Baseball and also for Dari Motion. So let's talk about the past of biomechanics. It really wasn't called biomechanics, but for the first 100 years or so of baseball, who taught biomechanics or mechanics? It was really the hitting coaches like Ted Williams and former players, Ted Williams or Mel Stottlemyre Jr. showing up, Mel Stottlemyre Sr. showing pitching. And that's really who analyzed the mechanics of our baseball players and taught them what to do. But a funny thing happened in the 1980s where science came into the mechanics of sports, really. And a couple of the early pioneers of the biomechanics of baseball were Rob Shapiro under Chuck Dillman and Michael Feltner under Jesus de Pina. And they were both in about early 1980s doing their PhD research and really some of the groundwork for baseball biomechanics. And then this is me a long time ago, hired by Dr. Andrews to start the American Sports Medicine Institute. Dr. Dillman, who was with Rob Shapiro here, came over to ASMI, and we started ASMI in 1987. So the 1980s brought a bunch of researchers who are now interested in the biomechanics of baseball. Not only was biomechanics a topic in the laboratory, but some coaches were really different birds. And Tom House, shown here with Nolan Ryan, was really perhaps the first coach who was talking about mechanics or biomechanics. And then Rick Peterson over here with Barry Zito was another coach in the 1980s who started embracing translating this biomechanics to the field, actually. And the reason why biomechanics became big in sports is because the technology changed in the 1980s. Up until then, Gideon Ariel and other people, what they had to do was they had to use film. And you make a film of an athlete, like a javelin thrower, an athlete, and then you brought the film back. Well, you had to get the film, you had to go get it developed, bring it to your lab, throw it up on the screen, and use this instrument to say, here is the elbow, here is the shoulder, here's the knee, and it collected the stick figure data. It was two-dimensional at this point, a video from film from one view. And not only that, this was right before I got into it, but a lot of times people would do the film, they'd go to that big event, they'd come back, they get developed, and the film was blank, or it was out of focus, or it was too dark. There was no, it was a mystery. Then the big revolution in the 1980s was video came out. Here's an early Sony VHS video camera. These are VHS tapes for the younger people. And video, as opposed to film, you could record it and see what you got a minute later. And this revolutionized biomechanics because now we could collect it and not see the next day whether we had good information. When I started ASMI, the first piece of equipment we got was this NAC, high-speed video, 200 frames per second. It recorded onto VHS tape, as you see here. It was really pretty exceptional for the time. So video really revolutionized what we could do. And then the other thing that came about, Abdelaziz and Carrera in 1970s came out with this what's called direct linear transformation, or DLT, getting two-dimensional views from cameras and computing the three-dimensional location of markers. And this is what the 1980s system by Motion Analysis Corporation and Vicon, they were using this math, and anyone who's a true biomechanics student should probably familiarize themselves with this landmark paper. But it changed biomechanics because we don't move in 2 dimensions, we move in 3 dimensions, and now the technology was catching up. And there was different ways to make the data, but the three-dimensional data as typically was a VHS video. You recorded it from a couple different views, two views or more, then you digitized it manually, and then you had three-dimensional data. There were also some automatic digitization systems coming out. This is what was known as cell spot. I don't have a picture of a baseball player, but this was actually, I took this picture in the 1980s when I was at MIT and doing a project on golfers. And these were what are called active markers. These were little LEDs, and we had multiple cameras, and they recorded the lights lighting up. But the LEDs, they took turns in a sequence. So the system would know exactly which marker was which because they would strobe and take turns being seen. So that was an active marker system, but the way to go quickly became the passive marker system, which we are all familiar with. Here's an early ASMI picture. The player has the reflective markers, lights are shined off of it, and then the cameras give this type of image, but the system could automatically track the two-dimensional view and then compute the 3D image. So this was what we started in the 1980s. You can see it's 1989 here, and this is still the gold standard, I would say. And then, honestly, the equipment was really expensive, and it was not pretty basic. And then, but what happened in the 1990s, video games and movies, like Darth Maul over here, they got interested in this technology, and they pumped a lot of money into the motion capture industry. So us as biomechanists, all of a sudden our equipment got much better and less expensive in the 90s, thanks to the dimes and the dollars of the entertainment industry. So that's a brief history of the past of biomechanics. I want to talk about the present. The present has a lot of different technologies that are used. Again, like I said, the gold standard is the optical system, as we've shown here at ASMI, with the reflective markers, the optical cameras, and the tracking of the system as shown here. But recently and today, a lot of these systems also work in an outdoor setting where you can bring the cameras outside, still put the reflective markers on, but the spectrum of light that the cameras will see with the markers that will still work in the outdoor setting. So that's another option nowadays. And then an exciting new option is markerless motion capture without manual digitizing, with automatic digitizing, where a player will play either in a lab or in a field, and then the system will be smart enough to compute the body segments and joint centers and compute biomechanics. We'll get more into that in a few minutes. Other types of biomechanics technology that we all need to know about is IMUs, or inertial measurement units. The one that's probably most well known in baseball is the Modus elbow sleeve, which is this little sensor over here, which has accelerometers and gyroscopes in it, and you put it in the sleeve, and then the baseball player can throw. It's very portable, and it measures accelerations and linear and angular accelerations and velocities, and can compute some biomechanical data. In addition to these single joint, there are also some systems like XSense, shown here, that could do full body data capture using IMU instead of reflective markers or markerless optical tracking. And IMUs are also used, as we know, in the bat swing, like the Diamond Kinetics system shown here. You put on the bat knob. There are other systems as well, and you could track, you know, the velocities, the accelerations, the swing angle. So these are other biomechanical systems that are available, and we'll be talking about them throughout these 3 days. Biomechanics, really, honestly, the first biomechanics equipment that entered baseball is the good old radar gun. Here's a current radar gun, but you know, they've been around for decades, and it's really the first data that was quantified in baseball motion. And we still have radar guns today, but we have other ball tracking devices, not just the ball velocity, but the ball spin or the motion. And we have things like TrackMan, which also uses similar technology, a Doppler radar technology. And then we have optical ball tracking, such as PitchFX or Hawkeye or Rapsodo, which are actually collecting optical images of the ball and collecting things like ball break and speed and things like that. And then, of course, we have force plates. Here you see a batter, 2 force plates, and you can measure, as you do in other biomechanical things, biomechanical sports, you can measure the ground reaction forces and torques. So that's kind of where we're at. And one thing, you know, one thing that's interesting is I did a little search the other day. I did a PubMed, and I did this search, baseball or pitching, and biomechanics or kinematics or kinetics. And I hit go, and I said, how many articles have really been published in our field? And then PubMed does a cool thing where you could download a graph. And so I made a little graph here. And these are how many scientific publications there have been in baseball biomechanics per year. And really in the 70s, 80s, there's 1 or 2 per year. And about ASMI started about here. And about 1990, we really kind of got into baseball. And you can see there were about 5 or 10 publications. This seemed to be a good year here. But in the in the 1990s, when we really started cranking out stuff, we were kind of like the only show in town, and there, as far as I know, and there were about 20 or so biomechanics papers published a year. Maybe we were doing half of them, but that's what was happening. And frankly, my friends, if this is still what we're happening, 20 scientific papers per year, we wouldn't really have a need or really enough knowledge to have a biomechanics society, a baseball biomechanics society. But check this out, what's happened in the last 20 years. Nowadays, there are about 150 or so per year baseball biomechanics publications. So with all the technology I was showing you, plus biomechanists being employed by teams, but really by universities and other research institutes, this is a major explosion and a major growth. And this is what's happening now. There are this many studies going on in baseball biomechanics. So that leads to the future. And the last part of what I want to show, which is the American Baseball Biomechanics Society, which we have now set up, and you are now attending our conference. And so just the purpose of this, you could check out our website, but the purpose is really, it's a society for baseball biomechanists. And what you as a biomechanist get out of being in the society is the objective is that we could share science like we're going to do these next few days in a scientific conference or in publications or in conversations, but share so that we're all on the same page and that we could advance the field as a group together. And we want to establish some standards. Some of us talk about torque, some of us talk about moment or degrees per second or different things. And we should at least be saying the same message, because so our customers, whether it's major league teams or a university pitcher or whoever, we should at least be talking the same talk. And then also the society will give us as biomechanists an opportunity to network with each other and perhaps find employment. And if someone says, hey, who's a good biomechanist for baseball, we'll know each other, we'll know who's a member of the society, and really standardize our profession. Now we are a society of baseball biomechanists, but the people we interact with or the people we serve will be teams, instructors, athletes, and the media. And our vision is the baseball biomechanist, our society, will be able to provide biomechanical evaluations, as many of us do right now, and kind of standardize that and provide high-level, useful biomechanical evaluations. And also, I think a lot of other people get these questions, but I get these questions, hey, the new such and such technology, is it good? Is it not good? Let's work as a group and as a society and figure out what's accurate, what's not accurate, what really gives valuable information versus just noise. And speaking about noise, even the good systems, I mean, there's a hell of a lot of data that comes out of these systems, any of these systems. There's graphs and numbers and charts and thousands of trials in different days. And it could be overwhelming to anybody, certainly to a baseball player, a coach, a team. Our job will be to help pick out the meaningfulness and what players and teams should do based on all this data. That's my view, our view of what the society should be doing. And again, teams are saying, hey, we need some help, and they're looking for a biomechanist to employ, or a person or a group to use as a consultation. And this is the vision of ABBS. ABBS, we had our first meeting in December at the MLB winter meetings. It was kind of an interest group meeting. We got together in San Diego and talked about, do we want a society and what do we picture doing? And we had some good ideas, just kind of brainstorming. And a month later, I sent out some emails to many of you, people I know in baseball biomechanics, to see what the interest level was. Well, I sent out, I think, about 40 emails. I said, are you interested in such a society? Are you interested in helping form the society? And 40 out of 40 people said, great idea. I'm interested in being part of the society. And 10 or so said, I'm interested in helping form the society. Well, we formed an organizing board in February, and the board together, myself and others, we got our act together and did this. We registered ABBS with the state of Alabama. You have to register with the state and with the IRS to be nonprofit. And then we established a website, and we also are open for members. And again, we want the members to be baseball biomechanists. That's who should be members, whether you're a student or a professor or work for a team or whatever. Go to the website and join to be a member. We also are trying to have a social media presence with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and today in July 2020, we're having this online conference. And next month, we're going to have our first business meeting at the virtual ASB meeting. And that business meeting, we're going to go over, we're going to ratify the bylaws and the board of directors and everything. And I hope those of you who are baseball biomechanists will tune in next month at the American Society of Biomechanics meeting and be part of our board meeting, a business meeting. And then in December, we plan, of course, it's all up in the air what's happening with MLB winter meetings, but assuming there is a winter meetings, we plan on having a scientific meeting like we're doing today there. So you see, we're trying to be involved in both the ASB, American Society of Biomechanics, and MLB, because some baseball biomechanists are involved in one or the other, and we're really trying to bring both together and be part of both. Here's some of the partners, by the way, and I got all these companies who are now sponsors and I'd say partners with our society. A couple of force plate companies, Burtech and AMTI, Diamond Kinetics, as I mentioned, with the BAT device, IMU. We have a couple of the ball tracking companies, Rapsodo and SMT, who makes Pitch FX. And we have some marker companies, marker motion capture, Qualisys and Vicon, as well as some marker-less ones, Kinetrax and Dari, Dari Motion. And they are three-dimensional multi-camera markerless tracking in baseball. And then there's Pro Play AI, which is a single camera cell phone, single camera markerless tracking, markerless biomechanics, as well as Driveline. Of course, many of you are familiar with Driveline. And Driveline actually, I believe, is partnering with Pro Play AI, but Driveline is also themselves a sponsor of ABBS. Again, go to baseballbiomechanics.org to learn, to become more involved and to see who's involved and what we're doing. Here's a list of our current board, our founding board, myself and others. You see the executives and the board members down here as well.